Why can't I focus? That was a question that I asked myself on my third day of trying to write one of my final essays that realistically only should have taken one. The sum total of the essay was maybe 5 hours of work, as I'd already done all of the legwork beforehand. So now all I needed to do was sit down, shut up, and write it. And yet, it took me 3 days of just diddling around, not being able to focus, in order for me to finally, on the 4th day, realize I'm not focusing and actually sit down and write it. And lo and behold, all it took was 4 hours of writing and then I was done. So, why was I unable to focus for the first 3 days of trying to write this? And this was dedicated 3 days, and I tried all the tactics of being able to focus. I did not have my phone on me. I took nootropics. I did everything in the book, and yet I could not focus until I realized this one little thing, and this one thing shifted my mindset, and I was able to then focus. Hey guys, I'm Showman. I want to live the best possible life, and to do that I need to be able to focus on the task at hand so that I can move on forward in my life day after day after day. And to do that, I actually searched up and have done a lot of thinking and a lot of research on focus, on willpower, and on staying on task. And I think there is one thing that's really lacking in the productivity, in the focus kind of market, in the advice that's being given. And that is that everyone is focusing on all of these strategies of focus, of doing dopamine detoxes, or potentially taking supplements, or not having your phone in your room. And all of these are great. You should indeed have all of the tactics. But what's a tactic if you don't have an overall strategy, the underlying reason behind the tactics? And that is what I was missing. I was missing a strategy. And I bet if you're here, you are also missing this very, very important strategy. And the way you can kind of look at this is tactics are like multipliers. Multipliers are great and they are needed because they can get you a lot of results quickly. But unfortunately, anything multiplied by 0 is still just that, it's 0. So you need a strategy, which I look at as more of like an additive thing. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4. And the better your strategy, the larger that initial number, the higher you can multiply it. So combining strategies and tactics is going to be your best bet. So with all of that out of the way, Shoma, what is this strategy? And that strategy is the framework of relevance. Relevance isn't a conscious thing. It's not what is consciously relevant to you. It's what's emotionally relevant to you. As in, which tasks are actually in your core relevant to you as a human being. Not what you think should be relevant, because obviously school should be relevant to me, and consciously, I think that school is relevant, and I think that doing well in this class would be relevant to me. However, subconsciously, for this particular class, I just did not care about it at all, not even a little bit, just because this class was just not something that I was interested in, not something that's super relevant. This is just one of those throwaway classes that I had to do in order to complete my degree. But when I was able to shift my brain from it being irrelevant to me to it being super relevant to me, I was able to essentially effortlessly sit down and do the entire thing. I didn't need to exert much willpower. I even had my phone in my room and I was not even all that tempted to check it, because all of a sudden I was able to sit down, shut up, and do the damn assignment. Now then, how did I do it? And more importantly, how can you increase your own relevance to whatever it is that you've been putting off so that you can do it effortlessly? And the big thing is you have to talk to yourself. You have to really ask yourself and feel the emotions of why you're resisting it. And how you can do that is by asking simple questions like, why can't I focus? Why can't I do this? Why is this not relevant to me? Ask yourself that and don't think about the logical answer. Don't give yourself the easy out of, oh, it is relevant to me because of X, Y, Z. No, feel the emotions that bubble up. And I think this is something that not a lot of people talk about. Yes, you can force yourself to sit down and write it, but you'll be pooped and you'll just be hating yourself right after it. You can go the real, Spartan way of doing it and just do it. Don't care about how you feel. Don't care about how you feel. And that's well and good. If you're able to do that, that's good for you. By taking just 10 minutes and literally doing what I'm about to share with you, you're able to essentially get out of your own way and stop resisting yourself so that you can stop using willpower, so that you can even be energized from activities that you previously thought were draining. So then, how was I able to convince myself that this was relevant? Well, I'm going to give you my simple little dialogue I had with myself, and hopefully that should shed a light on the dialogue that you need to be having with yourself. Once again, really feeling whatever it is that bubbles up. So, I'm in the middle of writing this essay, and I asked myself, why is this taking so long? Why can't you focus? Why can't you just get it done? And it all bubbled up that this was not relevant to me. This is not something that I want to be doing in the future. For a little bit of context, I was writing on the HIV epidemic, and though I think that this is something important, it's not something that I want to do in the future with my life. And so my subconscious immediately equated that to, well, if it's not relevant to me in the future, it's not relevant to me now, I don't want to do it, this is not something that's fun, this is not something that I want to do. And so I thought to myself and I went, well, isn't something like a virus or a bacteria, aren't they cool? And I went, yeah, no, they are actually pretty cool. I do like the way viruses work, and I do think that it's really interesting to learn about their virology. And so I said to myself, well, the HIV virus, that's a virus. That actually has a very interesting mechanism of action, a very interesting reason why we can't seem to find a cure for it. And so I said to myself, well, yeah, no, that's right. I actually think that is pretty cool. And so eventually, I was able to convince myself through that line of thought that indeed, this is something that's relevant to me. This is something that is good for me to do. And doing that only took maybe 10 minutes. Really, it was basically just that. It was listening to myself and the answers that bubbled up, and essentially just giving a counter-argument. And now if you're thinking that this literally sounded like you're talking to a child, that is exactly the point. Your subconscious mind is very powerful, but it is essentially just a child. Now, if you want the child to sit, you can just hold him down and just force him to sit in a chair. But eventually you will grow tired. And that is exactly the whole stick and carrot approach that I have been using. The whole oh, just get it done, just get it done, just get it done. You can do it, you can do it, you can do it. But every single time that I told myself that oh, you can do it, just get it done. After that, you can relax. Every time I said that, I basically reinforced this whole fact that I don't want to do it, that this is not relevant. In my subconscious mind, every time I tried to carrot and stick myself into doing this essay, I basically just reinforced how much I didn't want to do it. And so it got even firmer and firmer in my head. I was holding the child down more and more and more. But unfortunately, I have a finite amount of strength. And eventually that child will just run off. And that is kind of how willpower works. Your willpower works in basically the exact same way. It's holding your subconscious mind into doing something that it does not want to do. And so it's much easier just to convince essentially this big child that is your subconscious mind to want to do the activity. And it doesn't even have to be all that logical. As you heard, it really was not all that logical. I basically just have to remind myself that I think that virology and viruses are a really interesting subject. And by kind of reminding myself of that, I was able to then get out of my own way, let go of all the resistance that I felt towards writing this essay, and I was able to just kind of write it in one sitting. I want you to look at this child that is your subconscious mind, and I want you to ask it what it wants, and then convince it using questions and answers that indeed the thing that you want to do is the thing that it wants to do. You want to write that essay because you think it's good. But if your subconscious mind does not agree, well, then you're never gonna be able to write it, or it's gonna cost a lot of willpower. Take these cabinets, for instance. My dad randomly said one day, like, hey, I'm gonna redo the kitchen. And he's been redoing it. If you're a longtime subscriber, then you've seen my old kitchen and it does not look the same. This looks way, way, way better. So then how is he able to essentially do a full-time job of doing carpentry when that's not even his full-time job? He's a tailor, and yet he's an extremely good handyman, and he's able to do that. He's able to do that because his subconscious and his conscious minds agree that that is something that is relevant to him. This kitchen is relevant to him. It's the same thing with a good friend of mine. He was able to, in about 4 months, go from not knowing basically anything about AI programming to going full into AI programming to the point where he's literally written a program to make art. AI that makes abstract art. And I think that's incredibly, incredibly cool, but he had to relearn math. He had to relearn calculus. And I know for a fact that he, the first time he was doing calculus, did not really enjoy it. But as soon as it was relevant to him, as soon as he was able to actually apply it to something that his subconscious mind thought was relevant, well, all of a sudden, he was able to do it all day, every day, until he essentially mastered a fairly high level of calculus. If you thought that this was relevant to you and you made it this far, do hit that subscribe button, because there will be a lot more of these videos coming to you in the very near future. And while you're down there, if you could smash that like button to tell the YouTube algorithm that this is indeed a relevant video so that more and more people can see it, because I think this is a message that not a lot of people talk about, but that I think more people need to hear. And so if you agree with that, do hit that subscribe button, do hit that like button. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.